Judy can tell.
Where were they headquartered?
Winslow.
In Winslow. Okay, now let's go back. In other words, it was open range.
Open range.
And all the ranchers would get together and gather and brand.
And they would work with the hash knife because their cattle would drip clear up onto the hash knife. Well, your grandpa, Cap Naegle, ramrodded. They had different, like Snowflake had a group, St. John's had a group, Flagstaff had a group. There was 4 or 5, what do I want to call it? Outfits. Well, your grandpa Naegle, he would work his area up there so far. And every night, they would throw them together. And when they got a big enough herd, they would cut their animals out. And the hash knife would be there. Hash knife ran over 100 cowboys. Some people say they're the meanest people in the world, and other people say they were all right. Most of them were just got out of prison, where they recruited.
Gary just mentioned that DC Grandpa worked for Hash Knife.
He worked with the cook, chocolate.
What year?
I can't tell you.
It was
What
before
decade?
before him and Grandma were married.
So
Back in about 1914, 15, something like that.
he worked as horse wrangler and helped cook.
Was he a good cook?
He was a good cook, yeah. He could
He
make
used
some
to make great
like
sourdough
he-
biscuits.
Okay, when, this is kind of skipping around timeline, but that doesn't matter. Where was Daddy when he and Mom were courting and got married? Was he working for the Naegles?
I can't answer that, but he was living in Concho the same time. Grandma was living in St. John's. Because I remember Dad saying they raised goats and had a few head of cows. And they only had one pair of shoes
What was DC doing in Concho?
growing up. Oh, he worked for different outfits wherever he
Well,
could find a
DC was
job.
born in Concho.
Right.
Wherever he could find a job. But he tells that they only had one pair of shoes. And whoever got up first got the shoes on, got to wear them. On a cold morning, when you went out to get those goats and stuff, you had to go from one green pile to the next green pile to keep your feet warm.
Okay, I have some letters that Mama wrote Daddy. And I guess what we have to do is go back and see if we can figure out exactly, you know, this more or less to me was just prior to their marriage. Again, I just have them and I've shared them. I know I shared them with Aunt Jenny because Mama would say something about a dance and Joe was there and so was there. And I thought Aunt Jenny might know who Joe was. I'm assuming it might have been Joe Jarvis. Because he was in Mom's graduating class, and I know Daddy always teased about Joe Jarvis being an ex-boyfriend or something.
I don't know exactly where Daddy lived there in Concho. He never pointed any particular spot out to me where he lived.
Well, I just made an assumption that he was up in Vernon working, or up at the ranch. I thought he may have been
Well,
working
he
with the
could have been
Naegles.
working for Grandpa Naegle. I've never heard him. I don't recall him ever telling me.
I don't.
I know he shoot horses for him. I do remember him telling me that he shoot about 20 head in 3 days for Grandpa.
Okay, now I have heard that Daddy was real good with horses.
He was. He could have been a horse whisperer. Because he could throw handle a horse.
All right, this brings me to a question somebody asked, did Daddy have a favorite horse? And wasn't Pally his horse?
Yeah.
No,
Pally that died down there at the ranch was his horse.
let's see.
Okay.
But he also had a Palomino horse when they lived over, off of, El Mirage Road and Waddell. And I think it was in 1933 when they were living there. And his cotton crop went to hell. And he took, I think, 13 head of horses in. He took a Palomino and 12 other head of horses in to Glendale, I think it was, and sold them so that they would have money to survive the winter. And he got like $100 for 12 head, and he got like $100 for the Palomino.
I remember he had a horse named Rufus, Pet, and Dolly. And they were combination ride and plowing horses. That was 3 horses I know of he had.
But Pally was one that he had up here. at the
Pally
ranch.
is the one we inherited when they split up the ranch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they asked me, and I says, I remember that when he was up here, that we bought a horse called Pebbles, and that was more or less the one that I think Daddy rode, wasn't it?
Pebble, yeah.
The same Pebbles that we rode?
No.
My dad rode.
Uncle Gene took a horse named Squatty.
Yeah.
We got
I
Pally.
remember Squatty.
Uncle Al took Paint.
Well, Uncle Al had a horse named Midnight
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
when I was coming up
Quarter
here.
May
Yeah,
was
he had-
riding it, and it was
one with a
acting
little
up,
white
she
spot
got
on
mad,
his
got
left
off, and
side.
slapped him in the face.
All right, wait a minute, Joyce, you weren't heard there. Tell it again.
This was at the 4th of July event, after the parade.
About what year?
Oh,
Decade.
goodness gracious. I was in high school at the time, so I'd have to figure that out.
The 40s.
Yeah, the late 40s.
Okay.
When Uncle Al got through riding in the parade, and he could handle Midnight, and Midnight would dance all the way through town. He was just always prancing and dancing. And you could tell Uncle Al had a hard time holding him back. But when he got through riding him, Cora May wanted to ride him. So Uncle Al let her ride it for a little bit, and he was acting up with Cora May, and she was getting mad. So she had pulled up there, she was right there near Grandma's house, and she got off the horse, and she walked around in front of him, and she slapped him back and forth and told him to behave.
Where is Carla May now?
Cora May's in Mesa.
I was thinking about that the other day, and I hadn't
Yeah,
heard or seen anything of her in
Yeah, well,
years.
yeah, I guess she does a lot of temple work.
Oh,
All right, let me
Well, I better be.
come
running the
into
temple.
to this.